The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
We're going to be giving you a little bit of an update on how things are progressing with the Grand Opera House and all of its renovations that have been going on for some time, and for some people it seems like probably far too long, but it is winding down, and we're going to find out where things are at and when it'll be reopening and that kind of thing. To help us do all of that tonight, we've got a familiar face, I think, to most people here on Channel 2, Jon Urben, and I have to look at what your new title is. It's General Services Director for the city. So,
whatever that means.
whatever that means. Seated next to him is Tom Karrels. Tom is the project representative on the renovations, and then to my right is Joe Ferlo. He is the executive director of the Opera House Foundation. So welcome to all three of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to start out the first part of the show by talking to Jon and Tom about how the renovations came to be and that kind of thing. We've done this a couple of times in the past, but in case you missed it or just need your memory refreshed a little bit. So anyway, thanks again to everybody for being here, and you guys tell us how this all kind of started.
Well, it was about a little over a year ago when we were in the process of installing looking at the design of a fire sprinkler system for the Grand. And in the process of reviewing and evaluating that's where Tom was climbing through the attic there, and I think at some point it was determined that something wasn't quite right up there in many levels, and the decision was made to put everything into pause mode until he could get to the bottom of it, and I guess I'll let you kind of just give the recap of the technical issues that were found.
What really caught our eye is the way that the truss, you might know what a truss looks like, usually triangular shapes, pieces have to fit. So we noticed two things when we immediately walked in, is that the floor structure that you're walking on was considerably deflected, meaning settled. And then in trying to, so everybody's talking about sprinklers, and a couple of us, Al Danoff and myself, were poking around, and I found where the members were dislodged.
Okay.
So then we thought we possibly might have an isolated situation where one of the trusses, one of 8 trusses, it turned out to be 2, and then we were going to repair the 2, but we also thought it prudent to review much more, and the city manager said, check that building out from top to bottom.
Sure, because safety is the number one thing.
Right.
In the attic, and so he approved us to, so we stopped the repair of the 2 in the back of our mind, thinking we had much more problems, and then that's when we found that the floor that is supported by the trusses had major problems, probably more problems than the trusses themselves.
So in a very short period of time, and again, Joe wasn't real excited at the time when we had to do this. Obviously, as you said, public safety being priority one, everything was put into a pause mode so we could go through, identify it, and I think it took a couple of months actually to start really getting to the bottom of determining the scope of the actual problem, and it was pretty significant, and I think it surprised everyone involved at how extensive the problem was,
Yeah.
and I guess the rest is history, as they say, in terms
Yeah.
of putting together the bid specs to once we identified the problem, then it was a matter of, okay, what do we need to do to fix it, put it out to bid, and of course then in August, the council approved the funding to go ahead, a little over $2 million in total, on a variety of levels, everything from the roof themselves, the roof trusses themselves, to the life safety, the public safety, the life safety elements involved, the new roof, HVAC, just the whole gamut of various things related to that. So it's a considerable project, and
Yeah.
we're happy to see it coming to a close
yeah.
here.
Well, and people, who love the Grand in the city too, for them, it's going to be great to be able to go back and start seeing performances in the Grand again, rather than some of the other venues, and we'll talk to Joe about that a little bit later. But, sitting back as a citizen in the community watching this kind of unfold, it almost struck me as sort of like an onion, you peel off that first layer, and then there's so many more layers underneath, and it just seemed like you saw one little thing, and then that sort of mushroomed into something else, and before you know it, you got other things that need to be addressed, and you were probably wondering from day to day, God, what am I going to find today?
Well, yeah, we started in the worst area, and in fairness to the situation, the problems were very well hidden, because the problems were between the plaster ceiling and the floorboard. So those structural members have finishes at the top and bottom. So it actually took some, we call it selective demolition. And 'cause some people are saying, well, why wasn't this noticed? And then the parts that were coming apart were insulated with bad insulation. So it was just like that. It said you had to look for the problems. And then the problems, one last comment relative to all this, is they were really originated with a faulty gutter many years ago, and there was a repair, because the old buildings have got a gutter inside the building line,
Okay.
and that's what caused the decay. There was a repair made in the 60s that let go.
Now we have footage that we've been shooting periodically
Sure.
throughout this process that might give the viewers a little bit more of an understanding of the scope of what has all gone through this. Some of this footage has never been seen before, so it's an Eye on Oshkosh exclusive.
Oh,
in
well,
some
I'm
extent.
honored, John.
But we've been shooting footage along the way just so people understand, kind of grasp the scope of the amount of work involved, because unless you've been involved with it, I don't think you really truly appreciate how much work has gone on in the Grand,
Sure.
and to understand it, because people, they hear this number of $2 million, and what possibly could be involved with that. But I think once you see the trusses, and you see the massive amount of steel, and what we had to do to work around the wood timbers, and being respectful of the wishes of the Historical Society, and preserving the historic nature of the interior of the Grand and so forth, there was a lot of work put into that. And I don't know if we've really had time to crunch down the areas of where we've spent the most time, but I think in the past certainly a lot of it was the roof trusses in terms of the structural elements required of that.
Well, there was a lot of time up front trying to figure out the best way to repair it. The actual time period had quite a bit of discovery up front, and then evaluating the cost, because there were other options on how to fix this.
Sure.
But we worked with the Historical Society to be the...
Yeah.
I was going to say too, Tom, you've been in business a long time. You're obviously a well-seasoned pro, but, I don't know how much work you've really done in the past with historical buildings. Did the fact that this is such a landmark, did that certainly it posed challenges. Did it pose any, problems?
No, the engineering is all quite similar.
Okay.
These don't come up all that often, but we've been involved with, it's usually the roof of numerous, half dozen churches. Over in Berlin, a Whiting Hotel that we did 20 years ago, the waters was similar. None of them were as damaged as this, but because it's a landmark, the guts, the structure is still the same, whether it's this building or a factory. What was unique was how to save the soffits and how to deal with saving. If this were a factory, we would have ripped off the the roof and put on a new steel roof.
Sure.
Well, and I think you hit it on the head in the sense of it is a landmark, and there is a tremendous amount of passion, as we know firsthand, for this building, and the sensitivity to everything with that. We didn't take lightly as we were going through this, and everyone at this table is well aware of the time and consideration put into all that. So there was a sort of an extra element of heightened concern, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of how we addressed every issue. And I think here we're seeing some
Yeah,
footage
we're
now,
rolling
Cheryl.
this already apparently. So
And this Tom is in the actual at the very top, and I know we're jumping around a little bit, but there is actually a what we call the dance floor, which was the scaffolding. They raised it up to a certain point, then they had the attic above. Now we're in the attic, and this is a good example of having to have the steel surrounding the wood timbers, and those were the original wood timbers, if I'm...
Yep, that's the original truss.
I always
There
joked it
was-
looks like a battleship now. I mean, there is so
Yeah.
much steel up there. I don't know what the number was exactly, but I think I heard 20 tons.
And there's a chain fall to bring up the different pieces and bolting it together. But, so the old timber truss is in place, sandwiched between or on each side, and sandwiched between is the old timber truss, which is still there. That was a wish of the Historical Society, is so people can go in there and still see it. That's the winch for the chandelier.
Which is going to be operational again, which will be, I know Joe and company are very excited about that. That was a carryover from the renovation in the 60s, and it will rise and lower now, is our understanding. This is some of the footage of some of the life safety elements of the project. This is what got us to begin with, and this is some of the fire sprinkler system, correct, Tom?
Yep.
And the various pipes. And this is still in the attic, so it's kind of showing you how this is all connected throughout the building. And people may not always realize that the Grand Lounge, a project of the foundation, is what started this whole process. They came to the city and said, we'd like to add a lounge to the Grand Opera House, and that is where we began with this process. Sometimes we forget that
Yeah.
began the whole process.
and it started very innocent-like, and all of a sudden you discovered a problem.
So we blame
you know?
Joe, of course. along the way. Whenever we can, we blame Joe. But no, seriously, this is showing some more of the sprinklers, the sprinkler heads themselves. I believe this is the lobby, just to give people understanding of how they're sprinkling throughout and it was sprinkled in various sections
About 30% of the building was sprinklered.
prior to this project, but now the entire building will be sprinklered. But and that's just one. I mean, I don't know how many hours we spent on the heads and the colors and trying to minimize the distractions with them. I mean, they're obviously an important element of the whole piece, but we wanted to make sure they blended in.
This is probably going to show more of those wood soffits. The soffits, people call them beams. They're not beams. They're decoration.
You're talking about the green.
Yeah, the
green
green.
pieces
Right,
here.
okay, so the green there on the left is right next to a red piece. Then there's some lath there that's going to receive the sheetrock.
And this is the dance floor. Above this is the attic, just so people have relative to where it is.
We call it a dance floor, but it's the temporary floor about 20 feet off the floor, so you can stand there and then work on it. But what was tricky on this project was we had to support the red soffit and the green soffit, and that's made up of wood boards 125 years ago. And there's another shot there of the green just to the left of that temporary light. That was all supported off of what we call the dance floor. And then that floor was just totally ripped out.
And
These are all new joists.
Just to give people understanding, those soffits, because of the structural deficiencies of the trusses, I believe they had at one point sagged, what, 18?
8 to 10 inches.
8 to 10 inches below what they needed to be. And so now this is all post-construction here of the new trusses and the new ceiling and so forth, so people understand that. But Bolt did such a great job with these green, what they're called the soffits, raising them up ever so slowly to get them back to the level they needed to be. I think we were all pleasantly surprised by the minimal damage that was created by raising them up. And now when you go in there, you'd never know that there was ever a problem.
See, they've been fastened to the new floor.
They used to sag 8+ inches.
Wow.
They'd bow that much, and now they're all leveled out, and those are all original. All the green you see there was original.
Been repainted, but going back
There's more life safety now in the basement and various areas where they had to put some of these things in. So I'm not sure where the footage entirely goes from here. So we'll see. This is raw footage.
We'll
so,
learn together.
Yeah, but there was certainly a lot of work throughout the building. There's still a lot of work yet to be done. We've got a lot of cleaning up to do. Joe and company, they're going to be working to get the lighting back in, the chairs and so forth. There's a lot of cleaning, a lot of painting. This is the roof. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about the roof here, Tom, in terms of what was done there.
The roof was, of course, reshingled. When you raise the structure, all the shingles, as old as they are, they would crack and break, so all of those were peeled off. We actually insulated on top of the old roof boards. There's actually a product out there that you've got insulation glued to a sheet of plywood. Now what that did is, back if we had a shot on the inside, you'll remember seeing all the roof joists, and that allowed that to be free of insulation.
Okay.
And that's a good thing in an old building. You want to be able to see your structure. So we took advantage of the chance here. So the actual height of the building grew by 3 to 4 inches with putting that insulation up there. And we got rid of some of the dead weight, which helps make up for the additional dead weight of the trusses. But then we put the copper gutters around the perimeter. That's a shot of the chute, the demolition chute, all the plaster that came out.
Yeah, this was a good month and a half ago already, I believe. So just to give people understand, I mean, that obviously is not there anymore, but that
Neither is
was
the snow.
Yeah. At least we hope there's not snow outside right now. But this is, there was a lot of work done to this building in a very short amount of time. And again, we can't thank enough the folks on Market Street. They had to put up with a lot during this process as a move forward. So we're happy to have Market Street open for them now.
There were many dumpsters full of plaster, and we talk about new weight being added. That's where we've gained a lot of. There's a shot right there. That's a new plywood, and then the floor joist. But below there, of course, we used to have 1 inch to 1.25 inches of plaster. Now we were able. The Historical Society doesn't have a problem with going back with new finishes if it's just a flat finish.
Okay.
So we went back in with a much lighter product so that the loads somewhat get closer to what they were.
But just in wrapping up our piece a little bit, we can't say enough about all the folks involved. The Bolt has been super, Bolt Construction, working with them every day on this project. Tom and his crew, Joe and his crew, we really had a good team involved with this. I think I can speak for us on that and appreciate all their help. But it really, this is a monumental project. I think it's, as you said, it's sort of like one of those once-in-a-lifetime projects. And I can't say enough about everyone involved with it
Sure.
and how smoothly it's gone. So I'd like to think we're about 97% done now.
Probably.
That's probably about the number we've been
with your part.
we've been saying. Joe's got a lot more to go yet, and I know we're going to transition to him on this, but it's really gone really relatively well considering the scope of the project.
And not to try to take all the credit here either, we hire consultants. I mean, we've got 6 people in our office, but we've hired people to design the sprinkler system, the electrical system, the HVAC system, and these are all some of the best people, surely in Wisconsin. I did not take on the structural design of the steel trusses. I wanted second opinions on some of my thoughts, and I worked with, and what really drove me to grab some help was the fact that in the beginning we tried to make a repair very quickly.
Okay.
Quicker than with other tasks at hand. I got a hold of the people that I've counted on before, and they computerized structural systems in Milwaukee did an excellent job.
Okay.
And one thing I should add, because I know we're just in the process now, but the Decorative Elements Group, there was a Decorative Elements Group that worked on the project, and as Joe may allude to in a little bit, we spent a lot of time with that whole piece because, of course, the art is what a lot of people recognize when they go in there. And
Sure.
Unfortunately, the original art could not remain throughout the process. We did salvage a good portion of it, but the new art going back in is a combination of the sympathetic restoration that was done back in the 1980 80s,
Mid-80s.
mid-80s. Also, though, blending in what they were able to find from the newspaper articles and the descriptions and the photos of when the Grand was in back in the
1880s.
1880s. So, being able to blend that all together, I think the art that's being installed by Conrad Schmidt Studios out of New Berlin, Wisconsin, is really going to be exciting. I really think there's going to be a wow factor there that people are going to come in and really be impressed by all of that.
Sure.
It's sort of like the icing on the cake, if you will,
Sure.
when you walk into it. So we're excited about that too.
Sure. Well, before we switch over to Joe, you know, we talked about the $2 million figure, and of course, Representative Gordon Hentz was very helpful in getting some state money to help fund this as well. And you know, I know Joe and his foundation got some funds together too. The city kicked in its share. Where are we in terms of the budget? I think you mentioned that we were going to come in a little bit under budget.
Right. We're happy to know it. And again, I think it's a tribute to everyone at this table, the hard work that was put into planning and keeping an eye out for everything. I truly believe we're going to be under budget as we wrap this all up. That should be happening in the next couple of weeks. I don't have the exact numbers because we're still wrapping up little things here and there, but I think it's going to be a good share of dollars saved in the project, and so we're excited about that, and it's relatively on schedule, so you know, I think it's coming together good.
Okay, excellent. Well, very good. Well, let's talk to you, Joe. Let's switch over to you, and let's talk about from a performance standpoint. I know while this has been going on, you guys have had to, you know, move your performances to another venue. Has it all been over at Alberta Kimball?
We
or
did.
have you done
We
something
did a show
elsewhere?
in the fall in the lobby,
Okay.
and then we did 3 performances at Alberta Kimball. And then the other aspect of this was we wanted to continue to provide services to all the people who rent the Grand and use the Grand normally. So we went out to the different high schools and we went out to a couple different venues. All in all, we provided services at 7 different venues this last year.
Wow.
Throughout as far north as Pickett Auditorium and as close as our own lobby.
So what is that like when you have to move a performance to all these different places?
Well, there are two scenarios that we went through in the last year plus. There was the first half where we had shows that were already scheduled that needed to be relocated. And we were firmly committed that we were not going to cancel a performance, and as it turned out, we didn't have to. And a lot of people stepped forward and were quietly heroes. The Kimball Auditorium becoming available, as well as North's Auditorium and Lourdes Gymnatorium, the castle. And each of them had their own challenges. Some needed more technical equipment brought on board, and others needed not quite as much. So we had to adapt to each of those. Of course, I had to get with each artist with whom I had negotiated some kind of deal to perform at the Grand and make sure that we were all set when our staff followed through in moving all those things. All the customers who had tickets for performances at the Grand needed to be notified. The worst scenario was the first night when we had 6 hours notice to move 500 people. As it turns out, that was our largest pre-sold crowd
Wow.
of the year. It was the one we had to move in a matter of hours. There was that whole thing which was very exciting and almost guerrilla in the way it had to be done. Then there was the second half, the season that we lived through this year. And we deliberately went with a lighter season and taking some assumptions into mind which proved to be true. That first time through, folks were so good about going to wherever the show was. When it was us presenting a season from the start in other venues, I think people more freely said, yeah, you know, I'd really rather be at the Grand. And our attendance wasn't as strong for those shows this past fall in spring in Alberta Kimball Auditorium. And I think that was the reason. And I can't say that I blame them. I mean, it was a situation where folks really wanted to be home. They wanted to be back with us. And at the same time, it was important for us to do them. We had a market share to retain. We had an identity as a presenter to retain. Some of our grant funds are based on the fact that we're presenting, so it was essential that we do that. So we tried to do it creatively. You know, that show in the lobby was, 50 people at a time to see a full off-Broadway production in the lobby was it was a real challenge, and everybody rose to that. And at the same time, we couldn't get too deep into it because, as John alluded, it was really important. And my thanks to my employers, the foundation, for realizing this and saying, "Listen, Joe, we need you to take whatever time the city wants from you and invest it in this project. We're in essence going to pay you to be a consultant on this project." And I probably spent 50 to 60% of my time in the last year, certainly going through and working with these fellows and the contractors on what the grant would look like and what the project would look like. And again, that's the foundation. My hat's off to them for realizing that and allowing me to do that. And I'm tremendously honored, truthfully, to have been able to have my hands on this renovation project. It's really a once in a career opportunity, and so that was great. We had a couple other staff members who spent probably 20 to 40% of their time involved. Our tech staff and our event staff spent a lot of time at construction meetings and on site, and in some cases supervising, particularly the theatrical elements, because as wonderful as these contractors all were, and they were, many of them were working on the first theater.
Sure.
And there are some unique, how do you do theatrical smoke without setting off smoke alarms?
Yeah.
And things, and trying to plan in advance for technological improvements. Let's make sure that we don't have to drill a hole through a wall 5 years from now to accommodate something we can anticipate now.
Sure.
So we were able to spend a lot of time on the project itself while doing a skeletal season. That said, I'm really excited about looking forward to the new season. As it turns out, we'll be back open just in time in September for when the traditional season opening would be.
Okay. Before we talk about a grand reopening, and again, no pun intended there, but during this process, Joe, did you have to lay off any staff?
We had two cycles that happened. I pretty much had to lay off all of our part-time staff.
Okay.
They would come on, a few box office people would come on when we got busy, but most of them, unfortunately, had to be laid off, and hopefully we'll be able to bring them back if they haven't found other work. Our full-time staff, the 6 core staff members, again, our board allowed me to keep them, which was tremendous because there's no way I could get that quality back without a huge investment now. And the second hero there are the supporters of the grant, because during this whole process, their donations, starting with the Stand with the Grand funds and all of those great events that happened in the fall, and then working their way through the traditional donors at the Producers Circle and the annual fund donors, all of that remained constant through this year while we were going through this whole transition. And then on top of that were these incredible little $20 donations that came in. And believe me, that stuff adds up. And folks just said, we're with you. We're going to stay with you and go. And that's one of the reasons I continually feel this responsibility to those people as we get open, because they really are the reason we were able to hold on to the good people who work with me on that staff.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're down to about 90 seconds, so I just want to find out real quickly, I know you're putting things in place still for a grand reopening. It will be when, September?
Mid-September, and we'll know more in the weeks to come. And it won't be a one-day thing. It just can't be. There's a whole responsibility to have. You want that gala reopening, and at the same time, you want a time when those taxpayers can just walk in and see where their dollars went. So it's going to be a grand opening event, probably a couple of weeks long, with all different kinds of events, and running probably through that whole second half of September as we get this place reopened. Then, of course, as the year goes on, when the symphony's in, when the high school's in, X or high school Y, that's their first time too, and it's going to be a year of special welcome homes for all of those groups too.
Okay, excellent. Well, very good. Well, congratulations to all of you and to everybody involved in this project, whether it's the city for stepping up, citizens for stepping up, everybody involved. It's a job well done, and as someone who performed in that theater as a little kid, I'm excited to see it reopen. So
thank you.
Thanks very much for being here. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No. I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Very happy to be joined now by Mark Weisensel. He is a supervisor with Winnebago County. This is a new organization, a new service that the county is providing. It's from the Human Services Department, but he is a supervisor of the Winnebago County Aging and Outreach Services. This is something, as I said, brand new, and we're going to find out together tonight what this is all about. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks for the invitation, Cheryl.
You know, I, like probably most people in the community, first heard about this service through an article. Actually, I don't know if it was in the paper or if it was something that the police department sent out in one of their little newsletters. But I first heard about it through one of those two means. And how long have you been open?
Well, we just opened the doors actually on February 1st this year.
Okay.
So we're brand new, and there was an article in the paper, and we've sent some press releases out, and I'm glad the police are aware of us because we are getting referrals already from the police department. But we're brand new, and like I said, we're located on Washington Avenue. We're the third floor of the Human Services building. Okay. And the Human Services in Oshkosh, you know, is at 220 Washington Avenue. Yep. And right next to the downtown YMCA.
You betcha, you betcha. And hopefully no one's forgot about that downtown YMCA.
That's right.
Well, let's talk about what it is that you do there. I've been to your website, and I want to just let people know what the website address is. It's www.co.winnebago.wi.us. And then ADRC, there's a slash and then ADRC. But I think if you just go to, just Google Winnebago County, Wisconsin, that'll bring up the county's website, and then they can find it from there too. But, what kinds of services are you providing there?
What we're doing is, like I said, it's a kind of a new concept for government to actually do outreach and prevention. We're trying to work with people, and our client group is people, older adults, and also people that are 18 and over with a disability. Okay. And what we're doing is our staff, what we're trying to do is get them to plan for their futures and use their own resources and help them with all the different programs and services available and kind of navigate them through there. And there's so many programs, as you know, it's just a maze out there. And what we're doing is trying to get them to do some planning up front and before they actually are in a crisis. So they're actually working with us and to make their resources last as long as possible. So maybe they don't never have to even go on to the public dollar.
Okay, all right. There's so many things that as we age, we need more and more of. And one of the things that people, we're hearing a lot about these days, and I don't know if it's because more and more people are being affected by things like dementia and Alzheimer's, or if it's just that our awareness of it is greater. But if someone has those kinds of needs, for example, are you able to assist there?
Yes, definitely. And what we're looking for is we'd love to have their family members, say you have a loved one that's starting Alzheimer's or some type of dementia, have their family member call us, and we're going to give out the toll-free number later, or one of their caregivers call us, or even themselves if they realize something's happening or at the beginning of a dementia, they can call. And we have trained specialists, information and assistance specialists that work the phones, and basically you always get a human when you call. None of this
automated
answering
stuff.
Right.
That just drives people crazy,
I know,
doesn't it?
It does. Me too. So what we have is that we call it a warm transfer. When you call between 8 and 4:30, we're open during lunch hours too, and between 8 and 4:30 you always get a trained human that's very familiar. When I say trained, I mean very familiar, a professional that knows about the services and programs available in Winnebago County or statewide for any type of disability, knows about nursing homes, senior centers, cabulance, dial-a-rides, adult care homes, any type of program. So they're really up to date on what's going on. So, and we also, I want to mention, we do, upon arrangement, are open after 4:30 and evenings and weekends, but that has to be arranged in advance. Like, for example, somebody's visiting their parents for Christmas or for Easter, we'll make arrangements to have a staff meet with that family member or whoever when they're here. As long as we can do that in advance, we're more than happy to do it.
Okay.
And there's no cost for the service. The cost is free.
Because it's taxpayer funded.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
And we get mostly state money for this, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and a little bit of federal dollars. There's very few county dollars in the program, but it's been going gangbusters. We've been getting a lot of phone calls, more phone calls than walk-ins, to be
And
honest.
what kinds of things are they, what kinds of things are they looking for? Services do they need when they call Mark? Is it they're trying to just kind of get more information about what it is that you do, or do they have specific needs? And what might some of those needs be that they're calling about? Right.
It's both. But usually they have a specific need where they're calling. I had a phone call the other day where I took a call, and it was regarding somebody that was moving their mom here from another county, and she wanted to find out what's available in our county to move her from another county. So that type of thing, wanted to move her to a assisted living here.
Okay.
Or there's people just simply want to know what's cabulance like, what are some transportation providers in the county, things like that. Plus, our staff are also gearing up for something called family care, which is starting in July, and that's separate from the Aging and Disability Resource Center, or as I call it, the ADRC is the acronym.
Okay.
But family care is something that's going to be a managed care program, and that's through the Lakeland district. But that's separate, but yet we're going to be doing enrollment counseling and advising people about these are your options. We don't choose family care for people, say it's good or bad. It's just one option. There's also another option called IRIS, which is a self-directed plan. But at the ADRC, what we do is just giving people the tools they need to make informed decisions.
Kind of pointing them in the right direction.
Exactly.
You're a roadmap, if you will.
Exactly.
A GPS.
A GPS, I like that.
System to get them to where they need to be. It is interesting. I mean, what prompted you to have a separate service? Because you are, as we mentioned at the outset, a division of the County Human Services Department. Is the demand for these kinds of services that great these days that the county felt we needed something separate?
Well, there's actually a statewide movement to have aging and disability resource centers in every county in the state by 2011. That's what they're trying to do.
Because there's so many baby boomers that are,
Exactly.
Aging and ritaring and what have you?
Right, and the money is just not there to have everybody have to all of a sudden go on to the public system, So what our goal is, and I really want your viewers to understand, is to know us before you need us, basically.
Oh, I like that.
You know, so before you're in crisis, you know, because we can tell a lot more about services and things that we do when you're not in a crisis situation, because then you're listening, or your family members or your loved ones are listening to us. When you're in a crisis mode, you're not, you know, you're anxious and things like that.
Absolutely.
It's
yeah.
different. So
Yeah.
one other thing we're doing is, and it's going to be on next month on our website, is we're putting together a massive resource directory of all the services in Winnebago County and the state that affect Winnebago County, like statewide agencies, but like all the group homes, the nursing homes, all the services for the disabled, community-based residential facilities, retirement homes, everything's going to be in a massive directory. That's going to be on our website.
Wow, okay.
And so the public can go into there and just click on the button that says resource directory, and it'll come up. It'll have costs on there so they can compare and shop. You know, home health care agencies, there's going to be a whole list of them. Transportation programs, a whole list there. That's going to be a massive document. And we're also going to have the, I've been working with the Oshkosh Northwestern. Their editor is going to print 9,000 copies of this for us.
Wow.
So we can actually give out hard copies for people that don't have the internet.
Okay.
So
So that'll be, you'll be distributing that, or will some of them be in the actual newspaper, like as an insert?
we'll be distributing them, right?
Okay.
Because it's going to be so thick, we can't afford to publish that many that go out in the
Yeah.
paper like they do some of their inserts.
Sure.
But it'll be similar to what they've done and in the past, but it'll be a large document, and we'll make sure they're out and about within Winnebago County.
Who will you, how will you distribute them? Who will you be distributing them to?
Well, the 9,000, I've already got a plan laid out. I'm going to make sure they go to the Chambers of Commerce, to the senior centers. There's 4 senior centers in Winnebago County, to the meal sites, to the like different places that our target groups visits, the banks, churches, grocery stores, restaurants. I won't mention any names, but restaurants that seniors visit. So we have a whole distribution list already laid out. And then the Northwestern is selling ads for the directory,
Okay.
because we can't sell ads. So
Sure.
we and we put in the front, anybody in there, we're not endorsing their product just because they're in there. But then I'm doing up, along with our staff, the narration part, you know, all the narrative part. So that'll be interspersed with ads. But they can just go shopping among all these different home care agencies, and then they can call, and it will be free. And it's something that adult children can look at and say, hey, when they meet with mom or dad, you know, that big family meeting that they have, when they're home at Easter, or, well, we just had that, but whenever they're home, get together and look at the directory and say, hey, mom, let's look at this, or let's look at that, you know.
Yeah.
So that will be useful. And their siblings that can't make it to the meeting can go on our website and look at the directory at the same time,
Okay.
because it'll be the same document.
So those things are kind of more geared then towards someone who may need your services now. Let's talk about someone who is, you know, in their 40s or their 50s, and they're in good health. They, you know, they're still working, obviously. They
Right.
don't need any services that the county or other agencies provide at this time. What could you do for them?
Well,
Give me a scenario.
okay. Well, one thing I've been doing is I've been meeting with some human resource managers with agencies or with companies and asking them about their aging workforce. Because I spoke yesterday to some HR people, and they were explaining that a lot of their people are either taking care of their kids
Yeah.
or taking care of their adult, you know, their senior citizens, their mom and dad. And this is something new to them. You know, they're aware of it, but yet they need to know, well, how can I, you know, I can't afford to lose 20% of my workforce. So that's one thing where I'm going to be doing some public education with human resource directors and let them know about the ADRC. And people can come in and plan earlier. They come in and say, we have staff that'll work on Medicare Part B and Medicare Part D and any part of Medicare. We have benefit specialists, 4 of them, 2 disability benefit specialists. That'll be starting on July 1st. See, we're gearing up slow because of funding.
Sure.
But we do have 2 elderly benefit specialists that work with people 60 and over on Medicare, Social Security, things like that. And how to plan for your retirement is, you know, we'll work with you on that as far as how to make your dollars last as long as you do, is what I like to say.
And you pointed at me when you said that. I try and make my dollars last long.
Well, I'm going to try to be the same way. But you know what I mean? And prevention part, we're going to have a prevention component. Right now, we don't have the staff to do the prevention thing, but we're going to be meeting with the YMCAs and hopefully giving some money to that. I call them the twinges and the hinges programs. You know what I mean? And the senior center, like in Oshkosh Senior Center, we have a program there where we fund the nurse out of federal funds for the prevention programs. The prevention is the key to keep people healthy and well. So like I said, because we won't be able to afford the future if everybody needs public services. So, and we're trying to, my goal is to work like with the Northwestern, have more public-private partnerships there where they came together. They're saving us thousands of dollars by printing that directory for us.
Sure.
And yet it's a useful document that's going out there. And so it's an exciting new agency or sub-agency of Human Services, but it's great. I've been with the county for 27 years I was Director of Elderly Services and Director of Transportation Services. So to come together and after 27 years to make a major shift, I mean, I'm still doing that part too.
Yeah.
The elderly and aging services and transportations, right? Cabulance and dial-a rides and all that. But yeah, this is exciting where you're working with people short term and you're maybe just answering the phone, giving them the right direction. Maybe one contact is all they need and you steered them the right way and they're happy.
Sure.
And we do follow-up though, too. We also follow up with all of our phone calls.
Okay. And speaking of phones, I want to give the phone number. It is 1-877-886 2372. And I know that some of the publications that went out, I believe from the police department, not to point the finger at them, but I did let them know they had the wrong phone number in what they had emailed out to people.
I think it was at 8 and a 6 reversed.
Yeah, they did. And I had actually tried to call it to try and get you on the show, and I think it was someplace in Canada or something like that, and I thought, oh, this isn't right. So then I went to the county's website and found out the right phone number, and then I sent an email back to whoever it was at the police department.
Dory Wilner.
Yeah, actually, it came from somebody else, but
Right,
so I just sent an email back to them. But
there
again,
was a typo there.
Yeah,
I guess there was a typo between an 8 and a 6.
Yep, that happens. So again, the correct phone number is 1-877-886 2372. You had mentioned, Mark, about a woman who is moving her mother here from another county, and you were able to help her because, of course, she lives in Winnebago County. What if there's an aged person who lives in Winnebago County right now, but their primary, their closest next of kin, whatever, or a caregiver perhaps, lives in another county? Maybe their children live out of state even. And they just want to get some kind of information, or they see changes happening where they might have a need for something. Can they call even though they're living out of state or out of the county?
Of course, and we get a lot of that now.
Oh, do you?
We do get a lot of where the kids are out of state, and that's where the website is real helpful. They can go right on our website while we're talking to them and talk about services. And anybody of any age can call us for help. You don't have to be 18 and over to call. It's just that we, as far as services go, 18 and over, and with a disability or a frail elderly or any type of services for the elderly, Meals on Wheels, things like that we're involved with. But we do get a lot of calls from out of state.
Okay. Everybody has a different definition of what senior citizen or elderly is. At 50, I was able to join AARP, and I consider myself not elderly at all. and I don't consider myself a senior, but for some it's 50, others it's 55, some it's 60 or 62 or 65. When you say elderly, what do you have a specific age for that individual or that group of individuals?
Well,
or does it vary?
Well, it definitely varied now since I turned, after I turned 50, and joined AARP. So the number's going up and up and up. So there's really anybody 18 and over to the end of life we work with.
Okay.
And there is no, at 65, you can get Medicare. At the Older Americans Act money is at age 60, but that they might move up. It's a little bit older. 60 and 65, now our average person going to the meal sites are in their 80s. Transportation, a lot of those people that are older are in their 80s. And when I started 27 years ago, we had people at our meal sites were in their 60s and 70s. And now people, the average age is, like I said, is way up there, and those people that are in their 70s are our volunteers now.
Yeah.
They're the ones driving people to the meal sites or scooping up the meals for people. And it's the 80 and 90-year-olds that need the meals now. So things have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody in their 50s calls and they want some assistance with, something or other, they're not going to be turned away because they can be considered elderly.
Sure, elderly,
well,
right. And you don't have to be elderly or disabled, like I said, to call. We'll give information to anybody.
Okay.
Our goal, these information and assistance workers, their goal is to give out, and they may have a computer right in front of them. When they are up and going before 8 a.m. in the morning, so when you call in at 8 a.m., they can go right on and look up the directory, and this is available. Say you want to know how many home health care agencies there are and who are they in Winnebago County. The staff member can give you the whole list. So it's kind of like no matter how old you are, you can call in for help.
Well, and I did go to your website in preparation for this show, and some of the things, it's a real nice question and answer section there, and one of the questions was, what services do you provide? And I just want to give folks kind of a general idea here, in a little grocery list or a laundry list here. Services that they provide: information and assistance, long-term care options counseling, protective services, access to long-term care programs, prevention and early intervention. I do have a question about that. And then benefits counseling. And I think that was pretty much it on the list. And then, of course, it goes into, other types of things here with a little bit more specificity. Health and wellness, employment and training for people with disabilities, home maintenance, nutrition, publicly funded programs. You can hook people up and help them apply for supplemental security income, food share, Medicaid.
Right.
Even helping people find home care and hospice services.
Right.
So it's just like we have assisted living that can run the continuum of care all the way into a full-blown nursing home. It sounds like you have a continuum of care information system.
Right. No matter what
you've got set up here.
Right. I think no matter what your question is, we can answer it or we can research it and get back to you. But because of that, like I said, the database is already, the directory is already on the computer database. It's just not on the website yet because we want to make sure all the phone numbers are right.
Right. Yeah, you want to do that.
And all the agencies are right, because if the public's going to be seeing all these agencies, I don't want anybody to call a wrong number and then say, well, that's what you had on your website. So our staff have that available, but hopefully by next month we'll have that on our website too.
Okay. Well, I mentioned I had a question about this prevention and early intervention. What is that exactly that you're talking about there, Mark?
What we're looking at doing is getting together a lot of, and I mentioned before about the YMCAs and the senior center and like the Nina YMCA. We'd like to do is get some private prevention grants and do some types of healthy living programs, maybe some type of counseling where you could have a nurse go into somebody's home and check it out for safety. One of my goals would be to have something like, there's some seniors slip on rugs sometimes, when they're much older than us, and or whatever. Who knows? Anybody can trip on a rug, but one of my goals is to have some type of program where it's like the home safety checks county-wide. That would be good prevention, and because these throw rugs are dangerous.
Yeah.
And then maybe some low-impact aerobic classes, some stepping-on classes, things like that. Some people at the YMCA or at the, we could get a grant from some of the foundations here and have senior type of programs to keep people healthy. And because, once you lose that bone mass, then you're more frail and you fall and break a hip and then you end up in the hospital and then you can end up in a nursing home. Yeah. Nothing wrong with nursing homes, but yet you don't want to go there until you have to.
Right, right. And, even if it's just for a short time, you still don't want to have to be there.
Right.
If it's something that can be avoided.
Exactly.
By doing something else.
And the whole goal of this whole program, the ADRC, is prevention. And like I said, know us before you need us. Prevention, try to prevent things, but yet if it's already, though you're already in crisis, we will help you too. Because we do long-term care counseling, and we do help you with different types of programs, and we won't recommend a policy for Medicare Part D, but our staff will lay out all the options and help you with your prescriptions and things like that, and show you what the best deals are, but the decision is yours.
Sure. Well, and speaking of counseling, one of the other things that was on your website, and I mentioned it a short moment ago, was benefits counseling. Now, is that what you're talking about here with insurances and things like that? Is that what you mean by benefits counseling?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
We have 2 elderly benefit specialists, Joan Jaworski in the Oshkosh office and Candace Corbett in the Neenah office.
Okay.
And they work with people 60 and over with Medicare Part D, the prescription drug program, or supplemental health insurance. On July 1st, we're going to have 2 disability benefit specialists we're hiring. We're getting state money to hire 2 full-time workers there to work with people 18 to 59, the same type of thing. To work with through, well, the Medicare maze and all the, this is not a bill and things like that, they help through. I call it the shoebox syndrome, where you have this whole box.
Yeah.
Some of the people that we've seen have just put their bills in a box, and they don't want to look at it and deal with it, so they'll bring them into our staff and just plunk them down, and our benefit specialists will go through and look at them. Or they'll go out and do home visits. And our information and assistance workers will also do home visits.
Okay.
If you can't get in to the ADRC, we'll also do that.
And I want to go back in our remaining minute or so here and just kind of quickly find out, you had mentioned that if people set this up in advance, that something can be done after hours or on weekends. Like, what kind of a situation would someone need to contact you to do something after hours or on weekends? I know you mentioned if somebody's getting together during a holiday, but give me a kind of a scenario.
Well, say we've already had a couple where people work the same hours we do, and the adult children want to meet with our staff.
Okay.
So we set up a meeting for 6 o'clock on a Monday night.
Okay.
That type of thing. We're more than welcome to do that as long as we know in advance.
Okay.
And we'll have one of our expert workers sit down with the family or wherever, and they'll go in the home or at the ADRC.
Okay. Or I suppose when you mentioned about like Easter, because sometimes families do often get together during the holiday time, and if they are coming in from out of town or out of state, sometimes out of the country, if they're coming in for a holiday, then that would be a good time. And even though you guys would have to work during your holiday a little bit, it's a service that you don't mind providing.
It's a cause. It's a passion for helping people. We help people one person at a time.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to give, before we have to sign off here, I want to give the information again. And I know that the website address, and I apologize we didn't get it up there, but I'm going to give it again. And if you can't write it down while I'm giving it, you can always go to the county's website and just do a Google search, Winnebago County, Wisconsin. You do have to put in Wisconsin because there's a Winnebago County, I think, in Illinois also.
There is.
So put in Winnebago County, Wisconsin, and that'll bring up a link to the county's website, and then from there you can get to the aging and outreach services section. But it is www.co.winnebago.wi.ws and then /ADRC. And the phone number is 1-877-886-2372. So anyway, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. I think this is a wonderful service, and as it evolves and as changes happen and so forth, I'd love to have you back on.
I'd love that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and good luck. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Thanks to our guests in the first half hour. Thanks to the crew, and I appreciate all of you joining us tonight. Take good care, and until we meet again, we'll see you next time. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.